Yeah, no, JB Pritzker is a piece of you know what. I mean, you could comment down whether you agree with me on this or not, but he gets confronted here as to what's been happening in Chicago, what's been happening in the state of Illinois for some time, but especially Chicago with the mass murdering and killing and the things that he just doesn't care about. There were things that happened this weekend that this guy just does not care about, but yet he could spend all day speaking about how Trump is bad, how ICE is bad, but he does not care about what's been happening in his state for years. And he is solely responsible for the attention never going to these young men, women, and children losing their lives in shootouts. But anyways, let's actually show what Fox host here, Bret Baier, actually does right in front of his face, and he tries to avoid taking any accountability for the statistics that are about to be shown. I don't think he expected this to happen. So let's actually go through this. This is a very bizarre scene firsthand. Take a listen.
Chicago have the highest murder rate of all the big cities.
Well, we are not in the top 30 in terms of our murder rate. Indeed,
well,
our murder rate it has been cut in half over the last 4 years, and every year it's gone down by double digits. And if you look at all of the violent crime over the last 4 years,
here's a map.
They've all gone down.
U.S. cities, 17.47.
I mean, before I let Bret Baier take over here, guys, he just has the nerve to lie in front of Americans, right? He just has the nerve to flat out lie and say that the numbers and the statistics that are being shown here by Bret Baier are absolute lies. Watch how he gets humiliated here.
And every year it's gone down by double digits. And if you look at all of the violent crime over the last 4 years,
here's a map.
They've all gone down.
U.S. cities, 17.47 per 100,000 population. Chicago is number one over Philadelphia, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix, Los Angeles, New York, and San Diego.
What I'm explaining to you
now
is
you're
when
talking
you want
about
to fight
violent
crime. Look, you can pull statistics up.
No,
I can
these are
too.
murders.
I'm explaining to you that our murder rate has been cut in half. And very importantly, Brett, and you got to hear this, very importantly, we've been doing the things that are necessary to bring crime down, right? We've invested in community violence interruption.
Chicago have the highest murder.
So again, speaking of Chicago having the highest murder rate, he gets humiliated. You see how he tries to explain, you know, how they've tried to do a good job. But again, he just got caught lying flat out in front of the world, right? Begging for this interview to go sideways and then go to another topic. And he just flat out telling him, no, but you got to hear this. Look, you can pull up the statistics, but you got to hear this. You got to hear what I've had to say. And he is one of the main people, again, with all these crazy things happening in the state. You know, this guy, look, I don't know if you guys know, right? But JB Pritzker won $1.4 million on a blackjack at Vegas casino in 2024. He called it a lucky vacation. Like, this is crazy stuff. Like, he won. This was something that was exposed, something that came out. It's like JB Pritzker won a whole bunch of money. Look at this. This is crazy.
I went on vacation with my wife, with some friends. I was incredibly lucky. You have to be to end up ahead, frankly, going to a casino anywhere. It was in Las Vegas, and I like to play cards.
And I like beer. Pritzker's campaign said he'd donate the money to charity. In addition to the casino winnings, the Pritzkers, Mr. and Mrs., reported nearly $6 million in taxable income in 2024 on their.
Oh my God! So it's a scam. It's a scam. It's been a scam. This guy's been outed already. $6 million in deductibles. That means you've got to made. He probably made over 20-something million dollars. If I'm doing the correct math there, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a lot of money to deduct. That means that you have a high ceiling. That means that you are deducting this amount because you've made an incredible amount as governor. How in the world are you making that much money? And you got lucky during. Okay, cool. So let's actually go to what he has been talking about, because this is one of the guys who, again, have come out and have spoken about ICE agents. He went on Fox News again. Fox News told him, Bret Baier told him and confronted him about, you know, the crime statistics and people dying in his city, Chicago, of course, being a part of Illinois, and you know the fact that he just doesn't really care, right? And then he goes and he starts talking about Trump's agents, ICE agents, He says that they have detained innocent American citizens and residents, from children asleep in their homes, and aldermen staffers. They're talking about an incident that happened. But then I found this post, right, that was very interesting to me. Something happened, right? Somebody said from Chicago said, J.B. Pritzker doesn't give a damn about a single child killed in Chicago by the illegal aliens he's harboring from ICE, like this Venezuelan thugs, Daniel Navas, Miver, who murdered a 15-year-old boy and shot a 12-year-old boy. So I told you guys a while back, there was something happening between people in Chicago, right? Black people in Chicago that have been talking about this for some time. They've been saying, hey, you know, we're beginning to get worried that the gangs in Chicago, that we already have a gang problem here, are going to go and clash with these migrants who are coming in, right? That you guys are housing. And this is something that happened that, again, he does not want to talk to you about.
Suspect is now charged in the shooting death of a 15-year-old boy. 19-year-old Daniel Maver is scheduled to appear in court today for a detention hearing. Police say he shot the teen and a 12-year-old boy last Thursday near 47th Street and Union. We're told the victims were in some kind of fight right before those shots rang out. At last check, the 12-year-old was in critical condition.
Yeah, so this, and aside from what's already been happening in Chicago, it's pretty wild, right? So then he goes and he starts to melt down on Fox News.
Not something that we should be really talking about like that?
The thing that we're demonizing is when ICE agents aren't following protocols. They aren't acting like law enforcement should act. They're instead literally racially profiling. We've seen it. All you have to do is go online and look at some of the videos. Just to be clear, because I think many people that are listening maybe haven't seen that.
You don't
before.
think you're painting with a broad brush of all the ICE agents that are doing their job?
No, we're saying that if you're an ICE agent and you do these things, we think you ought to be held accountable. And yet no one in Washington, no one above them, no supervisor, no inspector general is holding anybody accountable. There literally haven't been any suspensions or firings for the terrible things that they've done, literally grabbing people, tackling them when they're U.S. citizens and have done zero
You've
wrong.
referred to ICE as Kristi Noem's thugs. Would you be willing to do a ride-along with ICE in Chicago to get a better understanding about what they do and what they deal with?
I can see what they do on the streets of Chicago.
He doesn't want to take the ride along. He doesn't want to talk to them. He doesn't want to work with them. He doesn't want to have a direct dialogue with the people that he is shaming. Again, this is what I told you guys about this. We've spoken about this many times on the show. I've said that plenty of times over. So as long as you don't get to see the other side's explanation for something, then you'll always be able to point them in this direction and point the public in the direction of hating, and never finding a solution to this problem. He's offering, right, to ride along with ICE agents to see exactly who they're finding in his state. Go do the ride along, and then you tell the public, okay, this is what I found. This is what I still think they're doing wrong. This is what I think they're doing super wrong. Or he's scared that he might actually find the people that they've been finding, child traffickers. Again, the people that they're looking for belong to some of the most dangerous gangs in the world. Doesn't really want to go through that process. Doesn't want to go through that process at all, which is, again, why this country is all effed up. And then here we go, right? So Brett Baer proposes another question to him, and he does not have an answer for this.
But do you believe any illegal immigrant charged with or convicted of a felony should be deported?
I think they ought to take the violent criminals and get them out of my state and get them out of the country. I absolutely believe that, but that's not what they're doing. They said they were going after the worst.
You don't help them because you're a sanctuary state, right?
No, we do. If you bring us a judicial warrant, we will bring you all kinds of help on the ground to go get the bad guys. That's what we want. We want the bad guys off the streets. What we don't want is for people to get racially profiled. That's what's happening right now.
But do you believe?
So again, sanctuary city laws. This guy doesn't really want to actually do that. Doesn't want to get the actual criminals. He doesn't really want to fix the problem, fix the system. I don't think he does. And I think there's a huge disconnect between him and the DHS. I really do. I think that there's a huge disconnect, and it'll cause these problems over and over and over. Meanwhile, again, the things that have been happening in Chicago that we've been talking about for years are never going to be addressed by this guy. He's never going to go and put out a tweet, so-and-so got shot. I pray for his family. I pray for these kids. You'll never hear him feel sorry because these guys don't care. They don't care. They don't care. Someone who doesn't care, and again, I spoke about this before Trump got elected. I said one of the biggest things that will happen that will sway public opinion if the Trump administration isn't careful in the way they do things is going to be immigration, mass deportations. I knew this would happen. And I knew people like Don Lemon would take full advantage to make people mad and get people pissed off and riled up. But he actually did cross the line here. Here's what he had to say to I think that's an MSNBC host, if I'm not mistaken. He said some wild stuff. And I thought that this is exactly where the country is at today. Well, we are so messed up as a country, right? Well, I think the left really, and people like Don Lemon, who again have no idea what the fuck is going on in people's everyday lives. He goes online and starts doing stuff like this.
Black people, brown people of all stripes, whether you're an Indian American or a Mexican American or whoever you are, go out in your place where you live and get a gun legally, get a license to carry legally. Because when you have people knocking on your door and taking you away without due process as a citizen, isn't that what the Second Amendment was written for? Go back and read what the Second Amendment says. And perhaps it will knock some sense in the heads of these people who are saying, well, it's all great. I don't believe they're doing it without due process. They're asking people for papers. They're not really beating people up. These people.
What's so crazy about this particular guy is that he's been anti-Second Amendment for a long time. He's been anti-gun for a long time. Another thing about him, he was one of the people that was, shaming you for not wanting to take the vaccine. Remember, people were getting forced out of their homes. Remember what the Biden administration decided to do in 2021, and you also couldn't enter a certain place without a vaccination card. And remember that time, he wasn't advocating for actual Americans to go get guns. Again, he was not advocating for Americans because that was an American thing. This had nothing to do with immigration. It's a huge problem. It is a huge problem, ladies and gentlemen.